start at the end point and then kind of work backwards to justify
that's a better way to phrase that. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a thing that actually annoys me about conservatives. Where okay, we kind of talked about this before, but I don't like I don't think being a conservative when you're not religious makes any sense at all. I don't think it makes any logical sense, because then what are you conserving? You know what I mean?
Well, I think so are you saying that like if you're not religious then you don't have anything to really conserve?
Yeah, well, because you have to draw the line somewhere, and it ends up being some kind of ambiguous, arbitrary line, either in the 50s or Reagan era.
Yeah.
So, but like,
I guess that's fair. But aren't there? I would say there are some like non-religious like conservatives. I guess those kind of people do tend to lean very much on the
financial kind of side of it.
On the what? Sorry, I didn't hear.
They tend to be more like economic conservatives.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
but also like I think mostly those types do tend to skew like sort of a like actual libertarian, like I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. Well, like I don't know. This is a very extreme example, but like Michael Malice.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm pretty sure he's an atheist, and he like, I mean, he's not necessarily a conservative either.
He's an anarchist.
He's an anarchist. Yeah. But like some of his talking points do align with like conservative values in some ways. But I don't know. Yeah.
I think
maybe elaborate a little bit more on why you don't think like why you need to have like some kind of religious or like a moral framework for your conservatism.
Yeah. So so what I'm going to say isn't necessarily like a reasoning, but I'm just going to say what people tend to do. Conservatives tend to be way too, I'm going to say, and this is kind of an inside. This isn't like me talking from the outside and being like just mean for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm kind of there with them. I'm kind of somewhat right wing. So, but conservatives tend to have this, and I have a lot of conservative values. I'm a very traditional person. So it's not me putting down conservatives for no reason. But they tend to be too cowardly when trying to, so they're way too reactionary. And the reason why they're reactionary is because they're too cowardly to put forth their implementations for what they think the world needs. And when I say cowardly, I mean like they're way too bashful to just say Judeo-Christian values. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Really, I mean, it depends on the conservative, but like the more mainstream conservatives, yes, definitely.
Yeah, but they end up using like dumb kind of like, they'll say like, oh well, historically we've always, or in human nature, this and that, and like you're trying to appeal to God, but in just the most roundabout ways as possible. Yeah. So I don't know. That's why that's kind of what leads me to kind of feel that way, where they're using like, okay, so for people who are religious or kind of quasi-religious, though their opinions have their foundation in the idea that there's like a transcendent, but
it's not a materialist.
They don't like have a
outlook
they don't
on
have
the world.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a better way of phrasing it. It's not a materialist outlook, and what's frustrating to me is how they won't ever present like a solution other than like oh, stop going so fast, basically.
Yeah. So would you say that the actual solution is like the actual like as corny as it might sound, for people to come to God? Like that's the actual solution.
I'm biased, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody's biased.
Yeah. Well,
so would you say would you say that you don't think that conservative values can be supported purely by logic. Like they have to be based on the sort of like moral framework of the like Judeo-Christian moral framework. Like are you saying that has to be there?
I'm saying it's arbitrary without it. It ends up because then you're like, so you're promoting family values. What does that even mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
you care
true.
about family.
There's
like
different family values for different cultures,
different family structures. So that like it just when you take out God from the equation, it ends up literally just meaning it ends up meaning the 1950s or the 80s. You know, it ends up just meaning one of those two eras. It's like so. And that's what people want to like conserve, and it really is kind of arbitrary at that point.
Honestly, I kind of agree with you, just because like I've been kind of getting a little bit sick of hearing all the like culture war talking points about like I don't know. I guess maybe what like this might be a good distinction is to like I think what you're describing as far as conservatism is cultural conservatism. And I think I would sorry, what?
Big con.
Yeah, big con. Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah.
No, I think what you're talking about is cultural conservatism.
Yeah.
But like I think from a government standpoint, like especially at the federal level, I think conservatism does make more logical sense because simply because it tends to be less, at least traditionally, less authoritarian than than like the more left leaning like ideologies. So like from a political standpoint, I don't think, and I don't know, maybe we'll disagree on this. I don't think that religion or like Judeo-Christian values should have anything to do with policy on like a federal or a state level, or I don't think any of those should really be. I mean, obviously they're based on the like Enlightenment values that come from a Judeo-Christian framework, but I think like I mean, so Benjamin Franklin like wrote the letter about separation of church and state. And when he wrote that letter, he wasn't intending to protect the state from church influence. He was intending to protect the church from state influence.
Mm.
So like this may be another controversial thing, but I don't think that like governments should issue marriage licenses, because I think marriage is kind of pointless if it doesn't have that religious significance. I don't think you should have to go, like if you're not religious at all and you're just living together. Like you shouldn't have to go to a court and
if you think marriage is like, just two people living together with a piece of paper, you don't know what marriage is, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If that's what you think marriage is,
yeah. But I don't know. I just generally think that there just needs to be less state influence in pretty much every like facet.
But
go ahead.
Yeah. So because you're saying you don't think it necessarily, you think that it can function divorced from like religion, right?
I think it probably should. I don't know.
Well, so I don't think it's possible, you know, because like, and because I mean, you agree with this, the idea that like everyone's religious. Every single person's religious. It's just, you know, the God you worship or you don't, you know?
Yeah.
So, if there is a void, it's going to be taken by something. And, I don't particularly like irreligious conservatives because it just seems like, or I don't like, I guess, big con conservatism, because it's just like, I don't know. I mean, it just feels kind of arbitrary. Like all the time, if the belief isn't informed by something, then it feels like their all the reasoning for what they're saying is just they're trying to get to what is it? They pick their
they pick their endpoint and then they find the logic to justify it. Yeah.
They found every single excuse other than saying, which the original idea is Christian values, but they don't want to say that, so they find every other reason than that just to say that. But that's really all that they are trying to appeal to, anyways. But
yeah, that's a fair point, honestly.
It almost, but what it feels like is a lot of times they're like, by taking they're trying to find like materialist reasons to justify their position, but they end up like they're sawing off the branch they're sitting on.
Yeah.
So like if you're talking to someone who believes that like there's no truth behind the words are all that there are, so they have a very materialist view of what words are.
Yeah.
There's no point in using reason with them. So like I was watching Michael Knowles on the Whatever podcast. You've seen that?
Yeah.
I was watching that.
I've seen some clips of it.
Yeah, I was watching it, and I'm like, why are you? It doesn't make any. Michael Knowles is very bright. He's a very smart guy.
Yeah,
but it doesn't make any sense to like reason with them because they don't care about that.
I like to imagine that the actor who played Abed in Community sort of just transitioned to a political career.
He does look like him. No, but yeah. So, and Michael Knowles is Catholic. And he'll be pretty straightforward about like his beliefs, but there's still this kind of cultural influence that we have with conservatives where there's this presumption that every single, I guess, idea should be like should make logical sense, but we're like disregarding the idea of you ever read The Righteous Mind by Thomas Haidt? No, not Thomas. Jonathan Haidt.
I have not read it. No.
He talks about different views of morality, different what's it called? Different ways of okay, I found it. Okay. It's a 5 moral foundations theory. So this is Jonathan Haidt's idea. Do you mind if I read it to you?
Yeah, go for it.
According to moral foundations theory, differences in people's moral concerns can be described in terms of 5 moral foundations. There's harm/care. That's 1. 2, there's fairness or reciprocity. 3 is in-group loyalty. 4 is authority and respect, and 5 is purity and sanctity. Liberals only care about harm and care and fairness and reciprocity, whereas conservatives tend to have like all of them.
Okay.
You ever heard that before?
No, so, I have not.
Like if someone only cares about fairness, and you say, I think if you're trying to say like, I feel like it's disrespectful to not kneel during the national anthem. How do you explain that rationally? Because it's like a religious thing. The idea of like sanctity. You can't explain sanctity to somebody who doesn't have that concept where they only have like fairness and harm. So he's going to be like, yeah, but it doesn't harm anybody. You know what I mean? But you say, oh yeah, but it's disrespectful. But it's like, at that point, like there's no way to possibly reason the idea of like sanctity to somebody, And we have this tendency where we go like things that conservatives tend to value is like loyalty or authority or sanctity, and they try to think that they can like rationally explain the idea of like respect for police officers or something, or like respect for the flag. When like at the end of the day, to like a liberal, they might have respect for the flag, but like at the end of the day, it's just a piece of cloth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where like if you're not a liberal, sorry, like a leftist. If you're a materialist,
I was actually just about to ask you if you meant liberal or leftist, because I think the distinction matters in this case.
I like liberals. I like liberals a lot. I mean leftist. I want to say that again. I like liberals, but yeah. So if you don't have those, if all you're evaluating the world through is fairness, and if it's hurting somebody, then the idea that, yes. Anywho, so let
me ask you this. Let me ask you this. from a federal government standpoint, why logically, and I guess if you're kind of taking the logic out of it, then it doesn't really matter. But can you logically explain why, from a government standpoint, why like harm prevention and fairness, like why should anything matter besides that?
From like a federal government. What do you mean by federal government level?
Just a broad government, like
you mean like
from a policy level. Like I'm not talking about culturally. I'm not talking about like what people should do. I'm talking about a government, like a government body making decisions about like laws. Like from that standpoint, why should it matter if there? I guess what I'm trying to say is I think the danger in like just openly embracing like the Christianity or the religious values of conservatism, just like that as the sole reason for being conservative. I think the danger in that is the fact that not everyone is going to hold those beliefs.
I'm glad that you brought that up.
You can kind of come to a point where it's just like one side it's like one religion or one worldview versus another, and it's just like you know what I mean.
I'm glad you brought that up. Well, only specifically because like for one, that's what we already have, and then the other part though is like the reason why I don't like it is because they're two-faced about it. That's what I don't like. So like don't tell me like that you have like rational reasons for why you think not kneeling for the flag is disrespectful when it's like a sanctity and authority issue. It's like it's not harming anybody's. You know what I mean? So like you can't just like if your moral foundations are rooted in Christianity, don't be fake about it. That's what I don't like about that. So
I see what you're saying.
They're picking the most roundabout ways to justify Christian values. If your foundation is going to be Christian values, then just say that. You know what I mean? Don't be fake about it. Because But in regards to because you were saying like nationally, how exactly were you phrasing that?
I don't think I was phrasing it in the best way, but I'm saying like
according to the moral
nationally,
foundations theory,
federally, whatever you want to say, any like governing body, how should they make their decisions? I would argue that the problem is the fact that the governing body, like you need to limit the amount of decisions they can make. I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
But like, what should they make their decisions based off of? Should they make them based off of Judeo-Christian values, or should they make them off of I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to be like unfair. Can I ask you a rhetorical question?
Yeah, go for it.
Why shouldn't someone have sex with their sister?
That is a good question.
You know what I'm saying?
So I think do you want me to answer, or do you want to just?
What if she's on birth control and you use a condom, and she's of age? You know what I mean? So like, there's no chance of harm. Why shouldn't someone have sex with their sister? And to say like
that's a fair question,
because you can say like it's a. I don't think this isn't very libertarian of me, to say everything I'm saying, because I don't know, and I'm not proposing anything. I have no idea what the government's place is in specific things. I think less control is probably better, but I think what I guess what I'm saying is like it's going to have to be motivated by something, and if it's not motivated by something good, it's just going to be whoever. Someone's going to pick it up, and it's going to be someone tyrannical or whatever. So we're going to have some what's that?
No, go ahead. Finish your thought, and then I'll
because that's what you have with like the leftism, basically.
Yes, it's materialism materialist. It's materialist.
It's materialist.
And I was actually gonna. This is what I was gonna mention.
Yeah.
This is what I was gonna go into. Is the fact that leftist morals, the leftists will use the moral framework of the Judeo-Christian values and Enlightenment values as long as it serves them, because they will justify. They will say things like, well, why should one person own a mega yacht and have $100 billion and one person, be starving on the street and homeless? And so, and from a materialist perspective, or from a non spiritual perspective, where neither life has more value than the other.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why should they? Like, this person worked hard and made something of themselves, and this person got on drugs when they were 12 and ended up homeless on the street, whatever. They each made their choices. Like, that I feel like there's two sides of the spectrum. If you go through the materialist lens, you can either end up very hardcore libertarian, like anarcho-capitalist, or you can end up as a communist.
Yeah.
But if you look at it from a Christian perspective, where you're supposed to have compassion and each life has inherent value, everybody is made in God's image, whatever. There's a moral framework for like charity or, whatever. I'm not.
This is a hard topic.
It is a hard topic, and I'm very unprepared. I woke up from a nap 10 minutes before you texted me to ask if I wanted to record the podcast. Man.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's raw. I think that's cool. That's fine. Yeah. No, I don't think. I mean, I hate when things are overly prepared.
No, yeah.
You were saying though?
About materialist ethics, I guess.
Yeah.
This
won't be boring, will it be?
Surely most of the people who listen to this won't find it extremely boring.
Yeah.
No. I mean, who cares though? No one is listening to this. This is just for you and me to talk, honestly.
Yeah, that's fine.
But anyway, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that leftists they can only deconstruct so far.
Yeah.
At a certain point, so like if you go by like the consequentialist, there's a consequential, like, the ends justify the means. Like the maximum amount of good for the maximum amount of people is the best option.
Yeah.
If you go by that framework, then this is going to sound terrible, but I mean, it is. Two men raping a woman could be justified because the two men would be getting pleasure and only one girl would be getting harmed. And if you take that like framework to its logical extreme, like, it's hard to find a reason why like you can't justify that.
Yeah.
So like, I guess I see what you're saying as far as like, every decision has to be motivated by some kind of moral framework.
Yeah. You know what I just kind of thought though, like, so because you were talking about like if it isn't fairness and reciprocity and harm and care fine in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
Like, but we take for granted the extent to which Christianity is like Christian values permeate our culture. I think we kind of talked about that last week when we were talking about like the Christian idea of masculinity, right? Mm-hmm. Where and the idea of like modern like how like in the ancient world, how Roman men like of power, they weren't expected to restrain themselves sexually.
Yes, like the idea of masculine like restraint. Like Jordan Peterson talks about, like being dangerous but using restraint.
Yeah,
like
that's a Christian thing, and
yes.
we take that for granted. So like, because you were saying how like leftists will use they'll what's that quote? They'll say God is dead while dragging the corpse behind them.
Yes.
So like they have a tendency to like say it's irrelevant, but also use it as use the frameworks of Christianity to make their cases.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking of like, so harm and care, or like harm or reciprocity. If you don't have like sanctity or loyalty or authority, how is it even possible to inform? Or like if you don't have sanctity or respect, how do you inform what's fair?
That's a good point.
Because like what you said, as horrible as the idea of like, so two men raping a woman is like in a twisted kind of world that can be viewed as fair because two benefit and only one suffers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but you can say like, I guess the harm aspect, like you could say she's harmed, but if you live in a culture that doesn't care about women, then like so the idea of harm that only works in a culture that I don't know, that actually treats individuals that
with worth.
With worth, yeah. And that's not possible if we didn't have Christianity at first. And I understand, people could probably say something like, I don't know, we had slavery for a while, and that was a similar idea and everything.
The thing is that we did have slavery under, like, there were Christians that owned slaves, but there were no the abolitionist movement was almost 100% spearheaded by
Christians,
Protestants. Well, Christians, but specifically Protestants as well. I mean, not the distinction necessarily matters that much, but yes, it was a Christian movement to abolish slavery, and during that time period
in it too, though.
Sorry,
what? There weren't a lot of Catholics in America at the time, but I know during the Civil Rights era, you could guarantee Catholics were pretty What you're saying?
I was just gonna say, during that same time period, the sort of like atheist or the science is the source of truth, those type of people, the people that subscribe to the idea that says science is how you discover truth, those people were the ones in favor of scientific racism up until like the 20s. Those were the people
the progressives, the ones who liked Hitler.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the people that like the eugenics people, the people that thought that that you could like breed people in a similar way to dogs to get like a desirable result. Like those, you weren't finding very many. I'm sure there were, but that was not like a Christian movement.
Yeah, it is crazy how like G.K. Chesterton wrote a book against that, Eugenics and Other Evils. You ever heard of that one?
No, I haven't.
But I think it was like George Bernard Shaw is brought up a lot in that, because he's like, I guess he was for eugenics. It's weird how many like liberals, or not, I knew something liberals, I'm sorry. A lot of like lefties back then were actually for the idea of eugenics.
Yeah.
And whereas it's you know what it is? It's you don't want to breed and lead to an ill-bred child, or a child that has maladies or some kind of whatever. So it's viewed as that's what would be most fair. You want to avoid the harm of the child and maybe of society, but there's no regard for the sanctity of I guess the process of life. You know what I mean? Or there's no regard for like the sanctity of like against, I guess, like playing God. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is interesting how often like the idea of playing God, it's like a very recurring idea throughout history, and it never ends well. Like the idea of changing human nature, like how in the French Revolution they tried to, for a while, like go to a 10-day work week.
Oh yeah,
because they wanted to get rid of the Jewish 7-day work week.
The cult of the supreme being, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. and I mean, obviously it didn't work.
Yeah.
But they like they were trying to. That's an example of and the Russian or the Soviet Union is another example of that, where people trying to use like to completely remove God from the equation and sort of reshape human nature into something quote unquote better.
Yeah.
And it always universally ends very, very badly.
Yeah.
For everyone.
You know,
it's just interesting.
What it almost feels like is because this is kind of my fear for like I guess the US as well, because we were leading down this way also. It's unpopular to like openly say something like what I'm saying about like Christianity, where it has to be informed by religious values. Otherwise, because you cannot avoid, like, the religious instinct is innate in human beings. You won't avoid it. You can't transcend religion. You're going to be religious in some way. You know.
Yeah.
So and what is it? The mind abhors a vacuum. So if you get rid of Christianity, it's just going to be the stupid religion that we have now. You know.
Yes. Yeah.
So and
the stupid woke religion, which by the way is also based on Judeo-Christian values at its core, because the idea, like, if you look at the Me Too movement, sorry to interrupt your point, but
no, actually, that's a really good point what you're making. Yeah, go for it.
If you look at the Me Too movement, like the idea that a man in power shouldn't take advantage of his position of power to sleep with women is like, that would never exist outside of a Christian framework.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
I heard I was listening to a priest on a podcast one time where he said, it's interesting because they're protesting, dressing like Puritan women while asking men to act like Puritans. Is essentially what he said. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So it is interesting, but like, that's a good point you made. Yeah, but you
were saying that it's a very, you have an unpopular opinion.
Yeah, well, because if you take out, the mind abhors a vacuum. If you take out Christianity, I'd say it's going to fill with something. But if you're not intentional, this is kind of a Christian idea. If you're not intentional, it's gonna be some demon or whatever. And what we effectively have now, honestly, is it's effectively just Satanism, really, because it's like destruction for its own sake, and it's hedonistic, it's egotistic.
It's funny that you mention like overtly like satanic, because out of like I randomly watched the music video for Unholy by Sam Smith.
Oh yeah.
And it like, I don't want to be like dramatic, but it was like, it was pretty bad. It was, and like have you heard the song?
Is it good?
Unholy by Sam Smith.
Well, he's a good singer.
He's a very good singer. He's extremely talented.
Yeah.
And he has a very nice voice.
I like his first album.
But anyway, the lyrics is the chorus is like, mommy don't know, daddy's getting hot at the body shop, he's doing something unholy. And the music video is literally it's an orgy. It's a satanic themed orgy.
Yeah.
In like a dingy, like concrete like warehouse, but with like sort of like Victorian dressing. I don't know. It's it's funny how like there was the satanic panic of like the 80s and 90s, where the paleo conservatives were like, they were like made fun of at the time for wanting to ban Harry Potter, or like for talking about like how heavy metal was gonna inspire the kids to grow up to be satanic and all this stuff. And it's kind of funny that in some ways it kind of did happen, to where like I guess you don't know any of the controversy, but like Sam Smith did the performance of the Grammys, like dressed as the devil, and then with like Lil Nas X dressed as the devil, or not dressed as the devil, but giving the devil a lap dance, all this stuff. Anyway, it's just interesting that culturally,
it's Satanism.
It's
really, and I hope because I could be like taken out of if we were popular, like if we were famous people doing this, talking about this. You'd see like Hassan Piker tomorrow going, look at this idiot thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like it sounds like a dumb take if you don't actually listen to what I'm saying, But like if you take out, everyone's going to be religious no matter what. You take out a good religion, it'll be swapped with a bad one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're not, which is like it's a really obvious idea. If you're not like when you have a habit, if you have a bad habit, you can't just stop doing the habit. You have to replace it with a good habit. Otherwise, like if you try to like if you try to like stop smoking, and you don't replace it with something, you might just like I don't know start.
But that's not even like what the example that we're talking about is like replacing good habits with bad habits. It's like if you decided all of a sudden that like showering doesn't make logical sense, so you just decide you're not going to shower anymore, or just it's replacing something
on a very small level though.
Sorry, what?
No, I was trying to explain on a very small level. Like that should intuitively make sense that like if you get rid of something fundamental, it's going to be replaced by something if you don't put something better in its place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It will like it's just naturally you're going to fill that up with something. So like the idea that we can just like take like get rid of Christian values and pretend like they don't have an influence on us, that's going to replace itself. Something's going to replace it, and more often than not, it's going to be bad. Like you saw that in that was obviously what happened in Russia. Because they were a very Christian country. They were Russian Orthodox. And then that they get rid of it, and then it just
almost universally Russian Orthodox. I think at that time.
And then whereas like, and you're seeing this now, and what it almost is like. It's hard to make that point where you say like it needs to be informed by something where you're basically advocating for Christianity. I'm not trying to say like Christian nationalism, you know what I mean? But but it's like the Tower of Babel.
Yes.
So a way that you could read the story is like why is it that God disbanded them? This is a way to read. This isn't like the way I read it, but a way that I've heard it read is because like what's wrong with them trying to reach God? Well, they're doing it for their own purpose and their own means. So like they're all united. I thought, well, what's wrong with them being united together? What's for a wrong purpose? And the further that goes along, that's going to just get more and more corrupt and increasingly worse and worse. And that unity will kind of create a hell of itself. So
I'm gonna try and find there's a verse in the story of the Tower of Babel that's very interesting. Let me see if I can find the
Genesis
passage.
11. Genesis 11.
Yeah, but there's one specific verse about how the there's a passage, I can't find it. There's a passage where it talks about how basically the only thing limiting what a person could do was their imagination. And I wish I could find the specific verse.
Oh, here it is. Okay. It's actually a really good line. Okay. And they said, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach into heaven. Let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And it says, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. And the Lord said, behold, the people are one. That's pretty telling. And they have one language. And this is the beginning of what they'll do. And now nothing will be restrained from that, which they have imagined to do.
Yes.
So, which it sounds like, oh, God's trying to ruin the party. No, I mean, it's a benevolent thing because it's like they're going to get into some trouble. You know what I mean? Because they're united around.
The idea, I think the idea is that if you leave people 100% to their own self-interest, and they will inevitably it will go badly eventually.
Well, what's also even telling about, because I was saying earlier that's a reading of the story. The way, so what is going on in that text is the tower that they built was probably a ziggurat. Ziggurats?
Yeah. Yes.
And have you ever heard this before? So in the ziggurat, there is a ritual called the opening of the nostrils ritual. And they would basically place an image of the god, like the idol, in the temple, and they would do some ritual, probably involving cutting or sex or something. I don't know. It depends on whatever. They would do a ritual to kind of essentially, the quote, open the nostrils, like to breathe the spirit of the god, so the spirit of the god will enter the idol, and then they can effectively get the idol to do what they want. So the Tower of Babel is essentially to twist God into doing what they want. So another way to read the story is, not to sound too like Jordan Peterson-y, but there's the way of they're uniting around a faulty goal. And another way of reading it is they're uniting around something, and their aim is essentially to twist the nature of reality to suit their own liking.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Which is also pretty bad too.
It is interesting. And in the first episode that we did, we talked a lot about AI.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how many people are really buying into the idea of AI and the idea that we will be able to make reality whatever we want it to be, whether it's we're going to be living in a virtual world, or AI will allow us to be so technologically advanced that there's nothing that we can't accomplish.
That I can just stay home and work off and have a robot feed me grapes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy that's what people think happiness is.
I know. And I think we did talk about this a little bit.
Oh man.
But that's the materialist perspective, that if you all you need is for everybody to be taken care of and completely satisfied, and everyone will be happy, and they'll make art. Everyone's going to be a farmer, and they're going to smoke weed and make art, and they're going to be a hunter in the morning and a farmer in the afternoon, and then a poet at night. That's what all the dumb commies are saying. But anyway, and it's funny that that is something that people say. I'm getting the quote wrong, but it's a quote about what you will do after the revolution has successfully taken place.
Yeah.
And it's I'll do whatever I want, basically. But it's if you try to be a hunter in the morning and a farmer in the evening and a poet at night, you're going to be really bad at all of them. so just, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. But,
well, it's been fun. I guess we should probably wrap this up until the next riveting discussion.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's been cool.
It's too bad too, because it was just starting to get good.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can talk more next week though, but yeah. Anyhow, I guess we'll probably call it at that then.
Yeah.